guys, what's going on? This is Ed from VinylAlbumCovers.com, and welcome back to episode 42 of Slept On. You know what we do here. We talk about songs that you might have missed, songs that might have flown a little bit under the radar, and this is certainly one of them. So I'm sure the audience that watches this channel, I'm sure you guys are well aware of who they are. But on the whole, most people aren't, and there's good reason for that. The family was, without question, the shortest lasting of all of the entities that Prince put together, and that he orchestrated and wrote songs for and produced and played on. This was the shortest lasting group of all of them. So we're going to talk a little bit about how they formed, and then we're going to obviously listen to the song, because we've got to listen to the song. That's what we do here. And then we can talk a little bit about what happened and why it didn't get the exposure that it should have gotten. So anyway, in order to talk about the family, we first have to talk about the time, Morris Day and the time specifically. That was a Prince concoction. Prince basically wrote everything, basically played everything, basically produced everything. The time was basically an avenue for another avenue for Prince's material, and it just so happened that he hired absolutely incredible musicians to play the part because they needed to be able to handle the live gigs. And then handle the live gigs they did. They were absolutely incredible live, based on all accounts. Really challenging Prince on many occasions and very nearly blowing him off the stage because they were just that good. So anyway, fast forward to 1983. Jam and Lewis, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, who were in the band, of course, as keyboard player and bassist respectively, they were producing the SOS Band. They'd gotten a gig to produce the SOS Band for Taboo Records, and they were trying to get back in time for a gig with the time, and they couldn't do it. Inclement weather kept them from getting back in time for the gig. They missed it entirely. Prince ended up having to play it, and as a result of that, sources differ. Prince says that he talked to Morris, and because it was Morris's band, Morris made the decision. But I think just about everybody else says that Prince fired them, so it's probably that. But either way, they were gone from the band, and this would seem to kind of be a crippling blow to the band, but ironically, it wasn't. They managed to keep going. They hired St. Paul Peterson, we'll talk about him in a bit, and Mark Cardenas, and just kind of kept going. And kept going to such an extent that they were featured in Purple Rain with that lineup. And of course, Purple Rain was very, very successful. It was Prince's debut film. It did quite well, unexpectedly did quite well, and it shot Prince to superstardom. And the time were helped out tremendously too, because by the time Ice Cream Castles came out, it was their most successful album, without question. It had The Bird and Jungle Love on it, a bunch of other things, and it did extremely well. But while they were able to overcome the loss of Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, they could not and did not try to overcome the loss of Morris Day. He decided he was going to leave the group and go solo. He kind of had enough. And there was no coming back from that. So basically and Jesse left as well. Jesse Johnson decided to take off tour and go solo. So Prince gathered the remnants in a room together and said, okay, we're going to form a new group with what's left. And you being St. Paul, pointed at him and said, you're going to be the new lead singer. Now at this point, Paul is like 21 at this point. This was a lot to ask. But obviously we know he was game for it because it happened. So here's where we get to the formation of the family. And FYI, they also pulled in Eric Leeds to play sax. So at this point, they've got St. Paul Peterson of the famed Peterson family. Susanna Melvoin, who they also pulled in, who was Wendy's sister. Wendy was in the Revolution. Jelly Bean Johnson, who'd been in the time, of course. Jerome Benton, who'd been in the time, of course. And then, as we said earlier, Eric Leeds, who was the brother of Alan Leeds, who was a long-time associate of Prince by that point. So nepotism at its finest, he says in an interview that I listened to not too long ago. But at any rate, so the group is together, and Prince had this whole concept for them in order to make it work. It's funny too, because even the artwork, I mean, it's just genius. You can actually go look at our website. I'll put the link in the description. You can go check it out. But he hired this absolutely incredible photographer, Horst P. Horst, who's a German, very, very well-known, legendary German photographer. Hired him to do both the front and the back covers for the album and some other shots as well. One that was used for the Screams of Passion single. And then Prince did a lot of it himself too. But he kind of had he constructed this very interesting high fashion image for the group to really make them stand out. And of course, as is always the case with Prince projects, he wrote all the songs. He gave credit to others on the, if you look at the label, look at the album itself, he gave credit to various and sundry people in the group for just about all the songs except this one. This one he kept the credit for himself. In fact, if you look at the label, this is the only one that's registered to Controversy Music. The others are registered to Paris Songs, which is interesting, which is where all the family stuff went to. So it's even, the publishing's even a little different on the song. So Prince knew what he had with that song, for sure. But so they did the record, and in the process of doing the record, I should also mention the fact that St. Paul was not allowed to sing the way he would ordinarily sing. He was handed demos that Prince had sung on, with the exception of River Run Dry, which Bobby had written, Bobby Z, who was in the Revolution. I don't believe that there was a vocal on that. St. Paul doesn't really remember. There might have been, but maybe not. Either way, he was given demos with Prince's vocal, and he was basically told to sing it exactly the way, sing each song, each line, each word in each song exactly the way that Prince did it. And you can certainly hear that that's what's happening. It's a little bloodless, but it does work. And it makes things a little detached, but that actually kind of works for the project, I think. And it was certainly the case with the song that we're about to listen to now. So I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and listen to this tune. This is the original version of Nothing Compares to You. It's absolutely gorgeous, and we will talk about it when it's over. I'll try to keep my mouth shut while it's playing. If I'm not able to do it, it can be found on YouTube. You can just type it in. That's where I'll be listening to it from. And you can listen to it there uninterrupted, should I run my mouth. I'll try not to, but I haven't been so good at that lately. So bear with me. Anyway, here it goes. The Family, Nothing Compares to You by The Family.
It's been 7 hours and 13 days since you took your love away. Oh, 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 oh. I go out every night and sleep all day since you took your love away. Oh, 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 oh. Since you've been gone, I can do whatever I want. I can see whomever I choose. I can eat my dinner in a fancy restaurant, but nothing, I said nothing can take away these blues. 'Cause nothing compares, nothing compares to you. Nothing, nothing. It's been so lonely without you here, like a bird without a song. Nothing can stop these lonely tears from falling. Tell me, baby, where did I go wrong? I could put my arms around every girl I see, but they'd only remind me of you. I went to the doctor, guess what he told me? Guess what he told me? He said, boy, you better try to have fun no matter what you do. But he's a fool, 'cause nothing compares, no, nothing compares to you. Nothing, nothing. In the backyard, all died when you went away. I know that living with the baby was sometimes hard, but I'm willing to give it another try. 'Cause nothing compares, no, nothing compares to you. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I said nothing compares, nothing compares to you. Oh, 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 oh,
Just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. So I did manage to keep my mouth shut. I'm proud of myself. So we're going to talk a little bit about this. Obviously, there's a lot to unpack here. So the first thing we need to talk about is that string arrangement. Obviously, it begins with string synth, 80s string synth, but the sound is just right for it. It completely works. But when the real strings come in is when it gets interesting. The strings were arranged by Clare Fischer. Any music head should know who Clare Fischer is. Clare did a lot of work with Prince, but he also worked with everyone. He probably worked with you and you don't know it. Like, he worked with everyone. He was just, quite frankly, the best string arranger in the world. He's as good as it's ever gotten for strings. Paul Reiser is a very close second, but Clare was good in that he would use these odd voicings that you just wouldn't expect and just completely turn the songs on their ears. And that's exactly what he did here. He just kind of did his own thing to it. And the results are just absolutely incredible. It really, without the string arrangement, the song is just not. It's not a song. It's not. It's not good. Um, just absolutely incredible work from him. Paul's vocal is less detached here than it is on some of the other things on the record, because he really is. While he is following Prince's lead, he is invested, and you can tell, and you can certainly hear the Prince isms in his vocal, especially when it gets to that part where he's screaming a little bit. That's such a Prince thing, and Paul did an admirable job trying to copy it. He didn't get it, but he tried. And when he does it live now, he doesn't do it, because it's just, yeah, that's just not in his wheelhouse to scream that way. But and Susan, then the harmonies, like Susanna Melvoin's harmonies, make no sense. They're just all over the place. They're just jumping. They're not just. It's not just up a third, cop the phrase. It's just she's going thirds, and then she'll go to a third, and she'll go to a fifth, and then back to a third, and it's the harmonies are just all over the place. And at times there are three voices. One of those voices is likely Prince. Um, Prince can be heard on things on this record. Believe me, he is on backgrounds. He plays everything except the strings and except the sax. Um, we should talk about the sax line too. That sax line by the incredible Eric Leeds is actually two solos. Prince just put them together at times. He just used both, and had them playing together at certain points, as you heard. But just an absolutely incredible arrangement. The song was recorded, which was produced by David Z, who's just did an incredible job with it, undoubtedly with a lot of influence from Prince when it came to the music, of course. The vocal was produced by David Z, so that is all David's work. Um, the engineer was Susan Rogers, who's just worked on everything Prince at that point. For a number of years, she did. Just it sounds incredible too, and the whole package was just put together so well. It was just totally set up for success. So what happened? I'll tell you what happened. So they do this gig to begin promotion of the album. They do this gig at First Avenue. There's only one. I'll put the link in the description so you can go watch it. It's made its way to YouTube, thankfully, and it's good. Paul is awkward because he's never been a frontman before, but it's good. And after that gig, Paul gets an offer, in fact, a couple of offers if I'm not mistaken, but one in particular from Gerald Busby over at MCA. No deal had been signed to put this band together. This was all just verbal at this point. There was no deal, which is odd. The I's weren't dotted and the T's weren't crossed. Very strange for Prince, but nonetheless, that's the way it was. And St. Paul was in free spirit. He didn't really want for this to be his gig. He didn't want to just always be parroting Prince line by line, phrase by phrase. He didn't want to do that. He wanted to sound like himself. And he got antsy about it. And he got his manager involved. He got a different manager, and his manager was a little more cutthroat than he should have been, and as a result, he ended up leaving the group very early on before the record could even be effectively promoted. There was one single released, which was The Screams of Passion. There was a video done for it, which is also on YouTube. Everything's on YouTube. But they never had a chance to promote because Paul took off. And without Paul, the lead singer's gone, and just as was the case with the time, without your lead singer, you don't have a band. They were less than thrilled with him. The band itself was not thrilled that he left the way he did. They've all gotten over it now. Everybody's friends again, and now they're together as, minus Jerome, they're now together as F Deluxe, and working together and doing live things. They put out a couple of albums, which are certainly worth hearing. They're really, really good. Of course, Prince didn't let them use the name, the family, because he was the most important part of the family, and he wasn't in the group. So he didn't want them to use the name. Makes perfect sense to me. So they became F Deluxe. But yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell. We're 20 minutes in, so I don't want to go too long here. But I did kind of want to touch on the story. St. Paul subsequently did sign to MCA Records and put out his solo debut, which had a minor hit in Rich Man, which he wrote with Oliver Lieber. Oliver Lieber worked with, produced Paula Abdul and wrote for her on her first record. But I won't go down that rabbit hole because it's all rather convoluted. Jelly Bean ended up hooking up with obviously coming back with F Deluxe, and he played with a bunch of other people, produced Janet Jackson and a Black Cat for her, and then produced Pretty Brown Eyes for Mint Condition. Did a bunch of other things too. Susanna was actually Prince's girlfriend at the time, so she was well covered. Eric Leeds started doing things continued to do things with Prince, became part of the New Power generation for a minute, also put out records with Prince as Madhouse, and then did a couple of solo records on his own. And they're all back together, minus Jerome as F Deluxe now. So there you go. So that's everything in a nutshell. So I know I kind of rifled through some of that rather quickly, but I didn't want this video to go on forever because it could have. But thank you very much for watching. As always, I really appreciate it when you guys watch these videos. Subscribe to the channel. Please subscribe to the channel. Share this video with others too. Let them know that this stuff's here. Our audience has dwindled because I wasn't around making videos. So let's make it bigger. Let's get it back to what it was. Also, support us on Patreon. Support me on Patreon. These videos do come at a cost. I literally had to replace a computer in order to keep doing these, so that wasn't cheap. So I would really appreciate your support. I'll put the link to Patreon down in the description. It's basically just a digital tip jar. And for doing that, there are rewards that are listed. You can help me come up with topics. You could do one of these with me. There's a couple of other perks too. You can get videos before anybody else does. So head on over there. The description's right. The description's right there. Yeah, the link is in the description for Patreon. So support us, please. I really, really appreciate it. And most of all, I appreciate that you watch. So thank you very, very much. It is truly, truly an honor. And until we see each other next time, keep listening to great music.